Welcome to Persons of Interest. I am your host, Derek Dockett. RJ Abella arrived at South Carolina University in the spring of 2013 as an assistant coach for the indoor and beach volleyball teams, and in 2015 he transitioned to full-time beach volleyball assistant coach. Prior to that, he was an assistant coach for the Wichita State Volleyball program. In this episode, RJ and I discuss a few of the ins and outs of beach volleyball, recruiting, national competition, and more. We also have a fun conversation as we dive into our shared interest of barbecue and the process of smoking meat. Here's RJ Abella on Persons of Interest. Are you still barbecue connoisseur du jour, by the way?
I am. That's kind of with all this downtime in the quarantine is I get to come up with the recipes and practice different ways to cook stuff. And like when you did a brisket.
Yeah.
I actually went out and bought a brisket, and unfortunately yesterday it was raining, and I was like, So I'm gonna probably start one at like midnight-ish tonight.
Nice. Yeah, that's like a new hobby of mine. We'll get into that too. We'll definitely talk about that.
I was gonna ask you, but I was like, maybe we'll talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about that. So RJ and I first met when I was working at the Valley, and he was coaching at Wichita State University volleyball, the indoor style. But now you've moved on to South Carolina doing the outdoor, the beach volleyball. What's that been like, sir? I guess I haven't talked to you in a while. So what's life like in South Carolina for you these days?
It's the beach volleyball is very much like a lifestyle sport, so to say. I mean, beach going, like easy, relaxed. It's not as fast paced and as structured, so to say, as the indoor volleyball game. It's just so for beach. So first of all, the biggest difference between beach volleyball and indoor volleyball is obviously it's 2 versus 2 on beach.
Right.
Indoor, it's six players, maybe 10 people total that rotate in and out to play. But on the beach, we're not really allowed to coach.
Oh, really?
Play is happening. Like we just have to sit in what they call the coach's box or the bench. And for set to 21, every 7 points, we have to switch sides. And when we're walking to switch sides, that's when we can communicate feedback or just encourage our athletes is every side change and timeouts.
So it's sort of like tennis.
That's exactly what it is. Holy
smoke. Tells you how much beach volleyball that I've been able to watch, obviously, because I had no idea that was the case. So interesting.
Yeah. So you can't coach. And ultimately, like, kind of really tests you as a coach. It's like you have to do a really good job of trying to prepare your athletes because come competition time, like they're on their own pretty much, And then on top of it, like the format of how beach volleyball played, it's so different where we have 5 pairs go up against another school's 5 pairs. 5's an odd number, so someone's going to win of the best of 3 for each of those 5 pairs. Whoever wins at least 3 of those wins the duel. And so when it comes to format, there's sometimes schools that'll play all 5 courts at the same time, and you can only have 2 paid coaches. So you're obviously going to be leaving some pairs completely by themselves.
Yeah.
They have to figure it out. And then you have some schools where they'll play like 2 different waves, where like 2 pairs will play, maybe an exhibition pair, and then the next wave of 3 play. So coming from the indoor world where everything's so structured, and kind of military-like when it comes to the coaching and training during matches, beach volleyball, it's kind of like, like, we'll figure it out. So it's something totally different, but it's super exciting. When I first made the switch from indoor to beach volleyball, everyone thought I was crazy, just because I went with the hierarchy of sports. Yeah. It's like volleyball is like the female football in a way when it comes to support and funding and attention. So then when I decided to go beach volleyball, everyone's like, what are you doing? Like, you put in so much work. And I don't regret a single bit of it.
That's awesome. So I know there's NCAA championship for it. Are you guys, is the SEC sponsored as a conference? You guys have a different conference? How does that work?
There's only 2 SEC institutions that have beach volleyball. It's South Carolina and LSU.
Okay.
So that's obviously not enough for a conference.
Right.
But what happened is there is the Coastal Collegiate Sports Association, the
Okay.
CCS. And originally it was a swimming and diving conference. And with all of these beach volleyball programs popping up and their home conferences don't sponsor it, they adopted beach volleyball. So now you have the CCSA, which consists of like South Carolina, Florida State, LSU, TCU, College of Charleston, Georgia State. Like, it's a huge conference. And in the future, who knows what that conference might look like. I know there's talks of kind of maybe expanding or splitting into two different conferences. Don't know the details on that. But beach volleyball has just grown so much that there's all these side conferences that are popping up
To give teams a home.
until these normal conferences, sponsored the sport. Like Conference USA actually has enough right now to where they could sponsor beach volleyball if they wanted to. But I'd say, honestly, the Pac-12 is the big conference for beach volleyball. Right now, we're going to have the big heavy hitters. But I think the CCSA just has as many heavy hitters, but probably better depth throughout the conference, which is kind of interesting because CCSA is very East Coast centric and Pac-12 is obviously West Coast.
Yeah.
Volleyball and beach volleyball as California reigns supreme, but then you have the CCSA making big waves and then showing that, it's not just the West Coast where there's the best volleyball. And the East Coast has it as well.
Yeah, I just pulled up the CCSA's website, and they have beach volleyball, swimming, and diving. And on the beach volleyball site, I see Charleston, FAU, FIU, Florida State, Georgia State, Missouri State, LSU, South Carolina, TCU, Tulane, UAB, UNCW, and is that Southern Miss?
Southern
Miss, and Louisiana Monroe.
Yep.
I'm looking at logos that don't have any school acronyms on them, so I'm testing my logo knowledge. So yeah,
Louisiana Monroe and Missouri State were the newest additions to our conference.
Okay, yeah, and I knew Missouri State had gotten it. I guess it might have been around the time that I was leaving the Valley, so maybe around 2017 or 2018. But I don't know when they actually joined to find a league. So I knew that's the newest sport on campus at Missouri State. I knew that. So interesting.
I was already at South Carolina, but I remember as soon as Missouri State added, people from Wichita State were reaching out to me and like kind of, what does the budget look like? What is equipment wise and your courts and the spacing in between courts? And you know how it is kind of with conferences, like,
Sure.
Oh, so-and-so got this and I want to get it too, or I have to compete with them. So with Missouri State being the first Valley school to pull the trigger, I think Wichita State was kind of thinking, we're going to make this happen because we compete against Missouri State. But then as soon as Wichita State left the Valley, it's kind of like, we don't need to volleyball because there's no one else in the American Conference.
Right. Yeah.
Missouri State, I was excited. Missouri State's actually come out to us the last 3 years.
Okay.
And play at South Carolina, and our very first graduate transfer recruit that we ever got was a girl named Jade Hayes, Springfield girl, around Springfield, Missouri. She played at Missouri, then she transferred to Central Florida to finish her career, and then she had 1 semester of eligibility left, and she'd always wanted to do beach volleyball. And I remember recruiting Jade way back in the day when I was at Wichita State. I was like, let's see what she's doing and contact her. She's like, I have 1 semester of eligibility and I'd love to play beach volleyball. I remember we brought her out on a visit in like January. And then just a couple weeks later, she was moving to South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Her very first graduate transfer from Springfield, Missouri.
How about that?
Volleyball in South Carolina. And she was actually, her partner was a freshman, 5'3" Macy Tendrich. They were the winningest pair that year on the squad. Jade, who'd never played beach volleyball before, just showed up in January and a couple weeks later was practicing.
Wow.
And her partner, the winningest pair. And then that player, Macy Tendrich, 5'3" and all, is the winningest player in program history.
Wow.
And all of her partners have been graduate transfers that have never played beach volleyball before.
Says something about her.
Yeah. And at 5'3", 5'3" is obviously short for the indoor game, but for beach, you're even tinier in the sand when you're 5'3".
Is recruiting different in the beach volleyball world than in the traditional indoor volleyball? Like, do you find yourself talking to more transfers for beach than you do for indoor volleyball? Are there any differences, or major differences versus similarities when you're recruiting for beach versus indoor?
Yeah, so it's still kind of up in the air, I guess, because beach volleyball is still new. It's pretty cool to say that I've lived in a time where the recruiting rules have drastically changed. So like kind of the old school model with recruiting is a coach could talk to any age prospect as long as the prospect initiated the call. So like, let's say a freshman in high school wanted to talk to me. She could call me and I could chat forever and, whatever I wanted to talk about. Now, only girls that are in their junior year of high school or senior year of high school, we can communicate with, regardless of if they initiate or if I initiate. That same girl that maybe when she was a freshman in high school, if she were to call me now as a sophomore, I would have to tell her I can't talk to you. So it's very different. So to say there's differences between indoor and beach, I would say the recruiting rules now compared to what they were when I was an indoor coach, it's a lot more lax, man. A big difference is also just opportunities to actually recruit for beach volleyball.
Sure.
A lot less than these indoor qualifiers, so to say. It's kind of like you kind of have to research your tournaments and you're kind of praying that there's a good showing at that tournament, where an indoor volleyball national qualifier, you have hundreds of courts and you're guaranteed to have a good picking there.
Yeah.
Beach volleyball, these events are smaller. They go a lot quicker. The differences in it, we're still, I guess, trying to figure out what some of the big, but I would say there are less recruiting opportunities for a beach volleyball coach to go out recruiting. Less practices also, I guess, for indoor volleyball. You can go to a club's indoor practice and there's a bunch of teams going on. But beach volleyball, you might have 6 girls, sometimes 10, 12, who knows. So that's kind of the interesting, the different recruiting opportunities are very different between indoor and beach. And I would say the times are, I guess the hot times for recruiting are very, very different, where pretty much in July, every collegiate beach volleyball coach is pretty much in California. That's just kind of a known thing, where there's all these national championship tournaments in the Los Angeles area in July. And it's pretty crazy, where previous years, I have spent the entire month in July in California out there recruiting. And there are numerous coaches throughout the country that do the exact same. Whether you're a club coach, you're usually out there for a long period playing in those tournaments, coaching your kids. If you're a college coach, you're out there recruiting for all those tournaments, where I don't think there's really a time for indoor volleyball where it's like that, where I think a big time is USA championships, A championships, and then you're just your normal qualifiers, but it's never like for a whole month where you just one spot.
Interesting.
So I'd say those are the two big differences between indoor recruiting and beach recruiting. Now, when it comes to connecting with the athlete, they're the exact same process of authentic conversation. At least that's how we recruit. Yeah. Authenticity is a big thing for us, and that's going to be different from school to school. But those are kind of the differences.
So who's the powerhouse that you guys are always looking to take down? Who's been the national champion? I see that UCLA has won 2019's championship. Is that correct?
Yep. So UCLA went back to back.
Okay.
They're obviously the top dogs right now, I guess. Well, it's interesting because our season got canceled 3 weeks into the start of it. But LSU made a really, really huge push, beginning of the year, beat UCLA twice. And within 3 weeks, it's crazy. They played each other 3 times, and that still blows my mind within 3 weeks. But I think LSU was ranked number 1 in the last poll.
Yep. March 8th, 2020, LSU had all 11 first place votes, apparently. Yeah.
So it's being an East Coast school. It's kind of wow, everyone thinks beach volleyball is in the West Coast, and now you have LSU, UCLA, and then Florida State.
Yeah, LSU, UCLA, Florida State, Hawaii, and Cal Poly were the top 5 in that last poll.
The top are 2 East Coast schools, and then even schools are out like us. We're South Carolina. This was an interesting matchup, but we played Southern Cal in a remote tournament hosted by us in Hilton Head, South Carolina. And we beat the Trojans. They were number 4 at the time. And then I think last year when we beat them, they were number 2. So I think when the top dog is UCLA, but we don't get that many opportunities to see them and play them.
Okay.
Obviously way out west. And so, I mean, obviously you always want to gun for who's number 1.
Yeah.
And try to get every opportunity. But out east, the big programs are Florida State and LSU right now. And we played Florida State twice, and they were really solid. They got us, but we never got our chance to play LSU. They were supposed to come and play us at South Carolina.
Oh, wow.
But ended. So I would say, honestly, for us, it would probably be like LSU, Florida State. Like, yeah, you want to take down the big dogs out west, but the big programs out east are maybe even better.
Yeah.
I might be stoned for saying that, but I mean, the East Coast is getting a lot better. And I think a win against a Florida State or an LSU would mean a lot more to our players and our programs than one over UCLA or something like that.
It's interesting looking at the rankings. There really are schools that I had no idea they even had it that are in this top 20 poll. So after Cal Poly 5, USC 6, Grand Canyon 7, Loyola Marymount 8, California Pepperdine, Stetson, but then East Coast here at 12, Florida Atlantic, 13, Florida International, 14, South Carolina, TCU, Long Beach State, Arizona at 17, Georgia State at 18, Stanford's 19, and Arizona State 20. So it's sort of popped up all over the place, and I know Missouri State has it. Are there more? Do you think there will be more schools investing in it? Because from what I understand, it's not like it's a huge burden budget-wise, because I know some schools have sort of shifted from other sports and added beach volleyball to keep up with their Title IX recommendations and things like that.
Yeah, so it was very interesting at our coaches convention, which happens in conjunction with the NCAA Final Four for indoor volleyball.
Okay.
Not last year, but 2 years ago was the first time in collegiate beach volleyball's growth that there wasn't a huge upbringing of programs. Previously, it would be like every year, like 10 programs would add, 12 programs would add. And like it was in time, it was the fastest growth or growing sport the NCAA has ever had. The fastest to get their own national championship ever. However, 2 years ago at our coaches convention, they were at our general beach volleyball meeting. They were talking about the growth, and they're like, well, this is the first time we haven't had a big growth spurt, and time will only tell. Like, does this mean our sports, like, is this just an off year? You can't base an assumption off of 1 year. But last year, they didn't even talk about the growth of beach volleyball at our general coaches meeting.
Interesting.
For beach volleyball. So I was like, woo, if they're not even bringing it up saying, oh, this is the second year that we haven't seen growth. Or they didn't even mention like, yeah, we added 8 or 10 new programs. They didn't mention anything. And so it makes me think like, has beach volleyball collegiately, like the big growth stopped? A lot of uncertainty there.
Yeah. But nobody really knows. I mean, especially now with everything that's going on in the world with this whole coronavirus thing. But with notwithstanding, I mean, there are a lot of other factors I'm sure that come into play with the university adding a sport.
And it's like, it is a relatively cheap sport. If you want to do it on the cheap, like you pretty much your money is just going to be putting in a beach facility or beach courts. The big expense of that, equipment wise, there isn't much you need. Tank top and spandex or shorts, and you're good. You don't need active ankles, knee pads, shoes.
Your travel's pretty compact, from what I understand, too.
Oh yeah. So it's a very cheap sport. However, I think what happened was administrators were wanting to add beach volleyball to get closer to Title IX compliance. So a lot of people think, oh, Title IX is if there's 12 male sports, there has to be 12 female sports. And it's like, no. That's not necessarily the case. It's a matter of participants.
Right.
So how can you increase your female participants to help offset the major landslide towards male athletes? So beach volleyball was an interesting way to do it because with the relation to indoor volleyball, and there are programs like College of Charleston where all of their indoor players are their beach volleyball team, or even Morehead State, same thing. You get to easily increase your number of female participants. However, I think what a lot of administrators kind of left out is it's not just a matter of participants, but it's also what's your ratio of female participants to scholarship, to receiving athletic scholarship. So I feel a lot of programs added beach volleyball and they're like, yeah, and we're not going to fund you. You stick with your indoor scholarships. And so you have this huge increase of female athletic participants or female athletes because of the addition of beach volleyball. But now your ratio of scholarship athletes goes down because of so many new beach volleyball programs popping up that they're not going to fund them.
Yeah.
That kind of bites people at the end, and they didn't realize, when we thought we were helping our numbers, we're actually also hurting that ratio. So I think maybe some administrators have seen that, and that's why the ad has slowly stopped.
Sure.
Because in order to do it the way you want, you do have to spend some money.
Right.
So that's always an interesting thing that we're still kind of keeping tabs on with collegiate beach volleyball. Is our growth, has it stopped? Is it just taking a break? Like, kind of what's the situation there? It's just all uncertain right now.
Yeah. So with the beach season happening, not at the same time as the indoor season, do you still get to watch indoor? Because I know at one point I was even seeing you doing some SEC Network, South Carolina indoor volleyball. You were on the microphones. Do you still get to do that opportunity? Do you get to do those types of things?
This season was the first year I decided not to do it.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, like I missed it. Like it was so cool.
Yeah, no. At one point, you like thought you were really like had a future in it, and you loved getting behind the mic and messing around with it.
I really did, and the downside for me, and this was interesting because like the play-by-play guy I worked with, well, one of the guys, he's now the official voice of a Gamecock men's basketball. So he travels and he's their radio guy.
Yeah.
I've become really good friends with him, and he was always giving me pointers and saying, it's like, if you keep getting better, like you could actually do a lot more with this. The problem is like, I don't know much about other sports where I can commentate and that's kind of the big thing for him is like, yeah, I learned how to call other games. I'm like, but I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And I gave up the SEC Network stuff just because it's a lot of work. Like a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
Research, the phone interviews, the pre-practice interviews. And honestly, what I did was I would watch each team's last 3 matches, and I would pretty much write a scouting report like I would for each team. And ultimately, I'm sitting there at a broadcast with 2 scouting reports with what I think will happen, what are some adjustments that could happen, what are these players' strengths and weaknesses, and who are they plugging in? And ultimately, I'm like, geez, like I'm already busy with beach volleyball and video of my girls' practices and competitions, and now I add 2 more teams
that you're not coaching; you're just watching for a TV broadcast.
Exactly. So I'm just doing a lot more work, and in a time where, well, back then when free time was hard to come by,
right?
I really wanted my free time, and I was like, the extra money is great. The TV experience on your belt is pretty cool. But as I get older, I'm like, I love my free time.
Yeah.
I needed to not spread myself so thin. So I decided not to last year. I don't know. I've been thinking about getting back into it next season, but I don't know. It was a pretty good year to have my days off to myself, and then so I could barbecue more or smoke something up.
That's what
I loved it. And also in reality, I think there's a strive for more female media talent. So I know I'm kind of already in the back burner from the start. So, but who knows? I have the experience. I know what it takes. I have some pretty awesome connections. So maybe down the road, we'll see.
Nice.
I know the dream I always wanted to go back to the Valley and during their conference tournament, if Linda Dollar ever retired from the mic, maybe I can make an appearance and all the nostalgic stuff comes back. But
never say never. If you have a free Thanksgiving, I know who I can put you in touch with.
Oh yeah, well I just got to keep an eye on if Linda decides to hang it up.
Yeah,
Which I don't know if that'll ever happen.
Yeah.
But
she's been doing it for a while, and I think she really enjoys it. Obviously, if she keeps doing it, she obviously enjoys it. That is funny. So it's funny you mentioned your free time though, because that's one thing I noticed. I realized once I made the switch from not working at the Valley more, because you're right, it is a thing of being able to do what you want on your Saturdays and your Sundays. And we were talking before we got recording that one of the things that I picked up most recently in my free time was smoking meat. And I knew that you, the Kansas City native, you know your way around some barbecue, and probably better than me. I don't even know. This is my question. I don't know if I've ever asked. What are your go-to barbecue spots in Kansas City?
Joe's KC is the one in the gas station.
Okay.
It's not Shawnee, but it's not in Kansas City, Missouri.
Sure.
Kansas City, Kansas. It's just right outside Kansas, Missouri. But Joe's Kansas City was originally called Oklahoma Joe's.
Okay.
Housed inside of a literal gas station. That's probably the hype-wise the most famous spot in Kansas City right now. There's a little spot by Kauffman Stadium, or on the way to Kauffman Stadium where the Royals play, called LC's Barbecue. Tiny place, slippery floors because the smoker's right in the restaurant, so there's grease just slinging everywhere. Like super, like the owner's office is in the dining room, and he just has 2 tables that he claims is his, papers everywhere, and he gets a rolling chair instead of the normal chair. Like, that's my favorite spot, getting burn ends at LC's Barbecue in Kansas City.
So I got a lot to learn, because I'm just like, I like Gates.
If you like Gates, you would love LC's, dude.
Really?
Yeah. And next time you're in Kansas City, hit me up and I will give you a walking tour. Not necessarily walking, but a little barbecue crawl.
I was going to say a barbecue crawl. I would have to not eat for a couple of days and build up the hunger to do that, but I would be up for it. I'd be up for it.
That's the hard thing with barbecue. It's like the meats you cook are pretty big. It's not like one serving size meat, so there's always a lot of leftover.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, oh, I can't let this go to waste.
Yeah.
I better eat it. And like that's the worst part about the hobby.
Yeah.
Is all the leftovers, and it's like, for me, I'm like, I spent all this money, like I better eat it, yes. Right?
So my thing has become, I always try to do it on the weekends and mostly Sundays, or have it done by Sunday at 2 or 3, so I can have it for lunch. And that's what I try to, unless I realize I'm like, man, I got this pork shoulder, I'm making pulled pork, I'm going to have this for like days. You can't find a small pork shoulder or pork butt to like do one person. It's going to be like multiple meals. So my last outing, I found a brisket flat. Yep. And it was just enough. It was already trimmed up from the store, so the fat was already trimmed up, and it was cut. It was a small cut, so it's just enough for me and my wife. So it's perfect. But still, even that will have another portion of meat left over after it. But so my newest thing is I had a grill, and my first grill, I had a charcoal basic one, and then my wife for Christmas years ago got me propane, and last summer in June, I got to looking at smokers, and I'm like, man, do I really want to go down? Like, this seems like hard work. I don't really want to, babysit a flame and get it ready and temperature right. Like, can I really do that? And then I discovered that there is electric smoker. So I'm like, okay, you can just set a dial. And then people were like, well, it's just like a convection oven. That's cheating. It's not the same. And I just got more and more reading about it. And I found that there are different types in all these ones. There's a stand-up one. There's ones that take these wood chips. There's one that take pellets. And I just kept looking and looking. And ultimately, I landed on an electric pellet smoker, and I bought a Traeger. And okay. Yeah, and man, oh man, am I in love with that thing. So here's what I'll let you grade my barbecue. And granted, you can't grade anyone's barbecue without tasting it and seeing it, obviously, but you probably saw my brisket pictures.
Your smoke ring was on point, sir. You had a very good smoke ring on that.
I appreciate it. But I have done brisket, I've done ribs, I've done pulled pork. I did a turkey for Thanksgiving. because I'm home for Thanksgiving now. Obviously, I branched out. I did a like a 14-pound turkey, and I was like so afraid because I had no idea what I was doing.
I haven't even done that.
I read so much and I watched so many YouTube videos of like, how do you do this? What's the best way of doing it? And I learned what brining. I didn't know what brining a turkey was until I looked all that up. But I found a process that I was comfortable with. And I did it, and it took I think I got up at like 5 a.m. to start the process so that it was done when we were supposed to eat our Thanksgiving meal. And it turned out great. Like it turned out pretty well. There are some things I think I do a little bit differently, but I think that's the best part about the whole thing, smoking any meat, is that you find things that you want to do differently to suit your taste. Like I'm all about finding different rubs and different sauces now. My thing now, what I did on this brisket that I just did this past weekend, I had a rub that somebody gifted me, and it was a Memphis style rub, and I put that on this brisket, but I also put on this like smoky, not quite Chipotle type rub, but it had a different type of flavor on it. And I had never really achieved the bark that I really wanted to get on this thing, but this combination of the rub got me there, and I had no idea to expect it. And I also think it played a part in me getting the smoke rink on it too. So I don't know. I'm all about experimenting with it, and it's just like I've learned to be patient. I'll put that way. I've learned to be patient because that is a huge part of it.
No, it's. I think there's so many lessons in barbecue or smoking meats that you learn while doing it. I mean, a lot of it's the origination. I could totally nerd out and rant about, not rant, but barbecue. But originally all the big popular cuts of meats for smoking were what was left over from way back, like a brisket. Like it's a very tough meat, very hard to make delicious and edible. I know you don't have to grill it up, but it won't taste as great. So
right.
Back in the day, brisket was kind of a leftover part. A pork shoulder or Boston butt was a leftover part, just because it wasn't like an easy steak. So back then, the kind of people with lower incomes would get, those are the cuts of meat they would get, and like, how can we make this taste real good? Well, what if we take things very slow and then try things out? And lo and behold, that's how smoking meats,
really?
Smoking briskets and pork butts and ribs kind of came about. Was they were the neglected cuts, and now they're kind of, I don't know what the word is, but like they're the fancy hot.
They're the go-tos.
Yeah. Like, it's kind of like if you're getting barbecue or smoked meat now, it's like, oh, we're celebrating or something good. Like, it's for occasions.
Yeah.
Where it used to be like, oh, I don't want that. Like, what are you talking about? So I think that's something that's always cool. Like, as well, you consider yourself a pit master now.
No, I'm not.
But it is cool because, like, at the end of the day, you can make awesome brisket or ribs or pork shoulder, but there's so many ways to do it.
Yes.
One thing that is common is you have to have time and patience. You can't like rush it or throw this in a microwave to get it to hurry up, or even increasing the temperature. Yeah, you can get it to hurry up, but it's not going to be as great as it should be. And that's pretty cool that like you even says like, I've learned how to have more patience. There's kind of a saying in barbecue where like barbecue takes, like people always ask like, how long is this going to take? How long is this going to take? And you can have the general guidelines of usually 1.5 hours of smoke per pound after something's trimmed is about what you'll get. But also at the end of the day, like it's done when it's done. Right. And you can't rush it.
I'm cooking the temperature here. I'm not cooking the time.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, so when I got the Traeger, I didn't realize that they have their own app. Now I have a basic one. So they make these fancy ones where it's Wi-Fi controlled and the temperature and all that stuff. Mine's just the basic level one because I had no idea what I was getting into. But in their app, they have tons of recipes. I mean, there are so many different ways to make brisket and pulled pork, and they have some simple ways and they have some complex ways, and you can inject stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like great. And it's super easy to follow. And they'll have on there, this will take you, 9 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours, whatever. But they'll put that at the top, but in the directions of the recipe, it will never say in some of them it does, but usually it says, for 3 to 4 hours, cook this, but cook this until it reaches 160, then pull it off and wrap it. So you're not cooking it for 3 hours just to get it to 3 hours. You're cooking this until you reach that temperature. That may happen in 3 hours. They may happen in 4 hours.
Exactly.
So that's what I've realized. That was my reasoning when my brisket I did this past weekend was that I picked it on Saturday because I knew Saturday I was going to be home all day doing nothing, and the recipe called for it to be sprayed down with this beef broth apple juice mixture in a spray bottle. So I'm like, if I'm doing this every hour, I need to be home to do it. So it was the perfect time to do it because a lot of times I've set my brisket up and I just put it on there, and I've gone out for a run. We go to church, come back, go run some errands, but I knew I needed to sort of do this every, hour, an hour and a half to get it the way I wanted to get. So yeah, I've learned a lot.
You'll begin to learn what is very necessary and what is really necessary. I need to do more spritzing. When I first started out, I would read the first 4 hours, you're spritzing every hour.
Yeah.
And then that's more or less to supposedly a wet piece of meat attracts more smoke. So it'll actually pull more smoke. And that's why it's important to spritz the first couple of hours.
Okay.
But then once your crust has set, which is usually 3 to 4 hours, it's pointless to spray because it can't take any more smoke.
Yeah.
So usually when your crust sets is about the time when you start wrapping stuff up. Because
Makes
now
sense.
you're trying to, 1, protect the bark, but 2, to retain moisture and tenderness in your meat.
Yes.
And to speed up the cook a little. So yeah, I can nerd out about the science. You need the website you should go to, AmazingRibs.com. All
right.
It's not the ribs website. It's everything. It's the pictures they put up, the recipes they put up. I'm just on that website it's ESPN.
Nice.
To get news for sports, I'm getting my news on smoked meats, and it's funny because there was one road trip where we're on a bus and I'm on my iPad just kind of watching videos and going through these barbecuing websites, and my athletes go, RJ, it's really weird because guys your age, you're looking at car magazines, sports magazines, and videos, and you just want stuff on barbecue smokers. We're worried for you. No, don't worry. This is a backup plan. If volleyball and coaching can work out, then I'll have my own little food truck somewhere.
It really is a thing. I had no idea, but there is for me. So I got into running about a year and a half, 2 years ago too, and I used to just hate running, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is a good way to stay in shape. But then when you sign up for a 5K and you do it and you finish, you're like, wow, it's a sense of accomplishment. Now I'm like, when I can do this and be patient, have it actually taste good, and be patient with cooking the meat, I'm like, oh, okay, a little bit of sense of accomplishment again that I can do this and follow directions and make my own meal.
And this is maybe looking too far into smoking meats, but the professions we're in, we're always working in teams, so a group setting.
Yeah.
We're kind of whatever our project is or our end goal is, it's dependent on other people doing their job as well. In coaching, it's kind of the same way. It's to win a match. Well, I'm not actually on a court, but you're putting the pieces out there, and hopefully you guide the pieces and put them in situations to be successful, so then you can win, and that's the success, so to say.
Right.
Well, barbecue, it's an individual person sport where if it's bad, you can't blame anyone else.
Yeah.
You can't blame oh, this rub is so horrible. It's well, you could have tasted it and decide if it's a bad rub, I'm not going to put it on there. Or I wanted to rush up the temperatures, or I was late. I decided to sleep in before getting the fire started, throw it on there, so now I can't cook it in time. It's all on you.
Yeah.
So in a way, being in a team setting all my life, I think the reason why I like barbecuing is because it's an individual sport. So I'm not going as far to say it's a sport, but
hey, and I've seen some TV shows. It looks like a sport. competitive cooking, man.
Yeah, I wanted to compete. Like, I bought a smoker just so I could compete, but it's really expensive to compete, so I haven't.
Yeah. So, what do you enjoy cooking? Like, you ribs, brisket, like, because I've got a rotation of like a few things: chicken wings, brisket, ribs, pulled pork, and like that's pretty much it. I need to find something else. What are you normally cooking?
If I usually, it's always a brisket, and the reason being is barbecue is very regionalized. So where you live or where you're at,
yeah,
tells you what kind of barbecue you can have. In the Carolinas, it's all about pork and whole hog. Like, you have to have, it's just pulled pork everywhere. So I can't really order brisket around here. So if I'm going to have brisket or I want brisket, I'm going to have to cook it. I also think it's like the toughest meat to cook because there's definitely lots of room for error, a lot more than like say a pork butt or a pork shoulder. So I always want to find a way to be more consistent and have the best cooks on brisket. That's honestly like, if I know I just want like a quicker cook or something easier, I'll go for ribs or chicken. And ribs is a little longer. Ribs for me is about 5 hours-ish.
Yeah.
Around there. Pork butt's a long one, but honestly, like, you can just leave that in there and not do anything to it and it'll be great.
Yeah.
But brisket, like, you do have to pay attention and trim properly, and I still am not that great. Well, you have friends that say, "Oh, this is amazing," but you're like, "Oh, well, you just haven't really had like the really good stuff."
Yeah.
Like, this is okay. So usually my go-to is brisket. I wish I did more of a rotation, but I just want to get so much better at brisket. That's all I focus on, honestly.
I bought a full big giant brisket, point and flat, that had to be trimmed and all that, and I did not do well with it. I'll just put it that way, because it had like the fat had to be trimmed on it, the whole thing, and I didn't do that as best as I thought I did. Like, and a buddy told me, he goes, "Don't worry about it. No one's perfect, because there's no YouTube that shows you how to perfectly trim a brisket, because they're all different. Yeah. You're not going to find one brisket is the same, and you can follow a tutorial to do it. You got to leave some on there, some fat on there, but you can't take it all off, and it's just no perfect science." So, and I don't mind it. Yeah, I don't mind experimenting at all. It's fun to do something different, but I'm just like, man, what can I do to do something different? That, you know, we've got this barbecue restaurant here in St. Louis called Salt and Smoke, one of my favorite barbecue joints here in town. They have tremendous brisket. Their chicken wings, their smoked wings are like the best on the planet. Like, I can't find another chicken wing that tastes as good as theirs. They're phenomenal. So, yeah, they are outstanding. If you ever come back to St. Louis, Salt and Smoke, it is phenomenal. It is phenomenal.
There are a bunch of clubs that I'm talking with in St. Louis that were planning to bring me out. Hopefully, if I'm able to travel, who knows with all this, but this summer, apparently I'm going to be in St. Louis.
Well, you let me know, and I will point you to Salt and Smoke. There are multiple locations now.
Okay. I know the one spot in St. Louis was Pappy's.
Yep. And Pappy's is still good. Pappy's is still good.
It's like where it's at, but I know there's more in St. Louis than just Pappy's.
Yeah.
Smoke, like,
yeah.
Okay.
Pappy's, Salt and Smoke, Sugar Fire has multiple locations. There, it's almost become a thing. And you, as a Kansas City guy, I know barbecue wars are a thing now here in Missouri, because Kansas City says they have the best, and St. Louis is like, well, hey, we're on the come up. And then there's always Memphis, but to me it's just different styles, different tastes. I have favorites that I like. There's a place that's in my neighborhood, a very small place, only one location, mom and pop type of place, and I love it. And they have the best rib tips. I love them from there. They do like Memphis style type stuff, but they do their pulled pork sandwiches where they put the slaw on the sandwich. Yeah. They're phenomenal. And their portions are huge too. Like, I'm getting hungry thinking about it. So, but yeah.
Huge portions. There was actually a place, oh my goodness. When we were at Drake. Yeah, because Adam Emenecker.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Oh, what's the name of it?
There's a barbecue place out there that has the Adam Emenecker challenge.
Yes.
I would always tackle that when we were play at Drake.
Jethro's.
Yes. Yes.
Jethro's Barbecue.
I would fail at that, but granted, like, it's a very novelty sandwich and there's a bunch of stuff in it. The brisket that they had on that sandwich, mind blowing.
Yeah.
And I remember the next time I would even buy like brisket just on the side to eat later.
Yeah.
Because it was so good. But
that's good stuff.
I could make a Valley barbecue map.
Actually, you really could, because now I'm thinking about it. Springfield has a place that I'd recommend. Drake has a place.
Could.
Carbondale definitely has a place.
Carbondale has a very, very world-renowned spot.
Yeah. What spot are you thinking of?
The 17th Street.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because it's actually not in Carbondale. Is it like, can't think of the town. It's like outside of Carbondale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because when I got back from to Kansas City from South Carolina for the holidays, we actually passed that town, and they have all these signs along the highway.
Okay.
And I'm like, been there.
Yeah.
Like we actually took the team there one time just because I love barbecue that much when I was at Wichita State. Like we took 30 minutes to drive to this spot just to eat there.
It's pretty good. Yeah. You could put together a list of 5-6 states within the areas of those schools and put together a barbecue crawl if you really wanted to. So nice. Well, sir, I wish you well. If you did you buy a brisket? Did you get one?
Oh, it's in my fridge. Like, it was supposed to go on last night, but then it was raining during the day and said it was going to rain overnight tonight. But it's pretty sunny. Well, it's cloudy. Yeah. But no forecast, so I'll put that on later tonight.
Nice.
Sure.
Nice.
I should be trimming up shortly.
Yeah.
Nice. That's the key, man. I heard it's the trimming that makes the difference in the brisket, like the full packer brisket.
Yeah. Which is why I'm afraid to do it anymore. I've just gone to the grocery store and looked around and see if they had a pre-cut, pre-trimmed one, and I was like, perfect for me.
But see, like, it's so depressing then. You spend, like, obviously that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You're being pound. And then when I'm done trimming and seeing how much weight I trimmed off, it's like, wow, that's like $10 right there that I just am throwing away. And it's just fat. And I'm like, that's the only bad part about the whole packer brisket. It's depressing how much money you throw away in trimmings.
Yeah, which is why I probably it'll take a little bit more courage for me to get to do that again. What I need to do actually is go to an actual meat shop, a butcher, and get their suggestion and have them do something for me. Maybe I'll do that for if we get out of this funk that we're in here worldwide and get to Memorial Day or 4th of July and do something up real fancy like. So my Traeger can only do so much. Like I said, I have the small one, but man, there's so much in that app that I'm like, oh, I can do that. Like I saw, let me pull this up here because you may have actually seen or had these things before. I saw something on their app, or I actually saw it on Facebook, and then I looked at it in the app, and I favorited it. Barbecue pork belly burnt ends. You ever done that one?
I haven't. I have seen a video on YouTube that was just put up where someone cooked those.
Yeah, so it's pork belly. I guess it's like what bacon is from.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you cut them into cubes, and then you sauce it with all this stuff. Let's see here. Apple juice, your choice of rub. So this is their description. Bite-sized barbecue deliciousness. Pork belly is slow smoked, then tossed and sauced for a sweet caramelized finish. Serve them as an appetizer, but beware they won't last long. So, I mean, they literally look like little burnt ends.
That makes so much sense. So what a burnt end is it's the point muscle.
Right.
So the fattiest part of the brisket, and you cube that up after your flat is cooked. You cube it up, you sauce it, you throw it back in. And the reason why you can do that is because it is the fattiest part of the brisket is the point. On a pig, the pork belly is the fattiest part on the pig. So it makes sense. Like, it's the exact same piece of meat on a brisket. Why can't you cube it up, sauce it, and throw it in the smoker? So I was just thinking, like, how do you make burnt ends out of on pork? But looking at it now, the similarities to the point of the brisket, it makes perfect sense.
You know.
And They had pork belly still at Costco when I went a couple days ago.
Oh, see, I haven't even looked. That's where I've been getting my ribs. So Costco does like a pre-season. Our Costco here, they'll like season them up and wrap them up. You'll get 2 racks of ribs, and it's like $20. And I'm like, oh, just do these right here, and then add a little pinch of my own little rub on there and throw it on there. I hadn't even realized they had pork belly.
I get majority when I buy a lot of meat. I'll go to Costco, and honestly, like a lot of competition teams, if they're not like the big wigs where they're like expecting to win, like a lot of the normal people would just go to Costco or Sam's Club, and that meat is good enough quality for competition.
That's good to know. I'm buying because that's where I buy mine.
Yeah, that's where I get my briskets, where I get ribs. Now, sometimes if I'm trying to fancy things up, I'll go to a butcher and get a brisket, but it's like twice the price.
Yeah.
But
you're getting quality.
Yeah, definitely. Supporting a small local business, which we need to do more of in these times.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, sir, I really appreciate it. This is fun. I didn't think we talked this much barbecue, but we're coming up on an hour. But that's exactly what I was needing right there. And now that I'm seriously hungry, I'm thinking about what I might smoke this weekend because, on the weekends, to me, I feel like that's what I should be doing. I bought more pellets for my smoker, so I'm like, I got to put those to use.
Now, what pellets do you use?
So Traeger has all different kinds, but Costco. So when I first I bought the smoker at Home Depot because it was on sale. And I had like this no interest thing. So I just paid off my Home Depot card. I was like, might as well just buy it there. And, it's on sale. But I bought a bag of pellets originally from Home Depot, just Apple. And that's what I use. Well, when I was buying meat at Costco, I realized they sold Traeger products as well. And they sell the big bag of pellets that is like $1 more. So it's like I get 5 extra pounds more. I think you buy like I think it's like a 16 or 17 pound bag at Home Depot for like $19 versus a 20-pound bag at Costco for like $18. It's like, why am I not just buying the bigger bag? And it's different because they do sell some of the like straight flavors, but they normally have in stock the signature blend pellets, which I guess is like the mixture. So I just typically go with that because it's good for everything. It's good for chicken, beef, ribs, you name it, pork. Because like I said, my rotation right now has been, I've done a lot of chicken wings, I've done a lot of ribs, I've done brisket, I've done pulled pork. So it's not failed me so far. That's what I've done. But I will say when I did the turkey, I went out of my way to buy apple flavored pellets because I really wanted that flavor to be on the turkey. So sometimes I'm like, I'll get these pellets so that I really get the flavor of that smoke in there. So yeah.
Just wait till you have all these little bins of different flavored pellets.
That's probably on the way.
Feeling you're gonna get to that point. I can just see it.
Yeah, because I'm. That's the next thing. It's like the kitchen pantry looks like that now with like all the rubs. Like I literally have like brown sugar, this smoky chipotle, this chicken rub. I literally have like. And I found this store in my neighborhood. It's called the Beer and Sauce Shop. They sell unique beer, unique sauces like barbecue sauce, chipotle sauce, wing sauce, you name it. And they have rubs in there. So I found a bourbon maple barbecue rub. I found a chicken specific rub in there. You name it. Like they have a wall full of different things you can rub down rub down for your meat. And I'm like, this is probably where I need to be going now. Wherever I know I wanting for a different flavor. So I've been traditionally sticking with what I find in the grocery store. The Weber stuff has been okay for me, but every once in a while I'm like, I want this flavor to really be in there. And I like ask for someone's recommendation and I'm like, ooh, I'll go get that then. And I'll go get this. And I'll sometimes the Traeger app says usually, for this brisket, use this Traeger beef rub. I'm like, well, I don't have Traeger's beef rub. So I need to find out what the substitution is that I'm going to be comfortable with. So I'll go and find something specific that'll make me feel good and warm and fuzzy inside. So, but you're right. I would probably have separated pellet bins in my garage at some point and have apple, maple, and blend and everything together. So
check out that AmazingRibs.com. I think you will really, really enjoy that website because I know I love it. I could spend so many hours on that website just reading and then just review. They have reviews of stuff, equipment as well. Like if you're unsure about certain things, but then just the recipes and the science.
Yeah.
Like it's
you
awesome.
Just gave me. I typed it in when you brought it up, and I clicked on it, and it said tested recipes. I was like, oh, recipes, and they're like competition style, like all these other things on there. So I'm like, all right, I'll dig in there and see what more I can find. So like they already have up top here a specialty pork ribs recipe. I was like, okay. I'm always interested in doing something different, especially when I know I can cook it. It's like I'm confident in ribs, so I'm all about trying it a different way and whatnot. So, because for me, if I can just on the Traeger, it's just turning the dial and setting the temperature. If I need to be at 180, I'm at 180. That's the best part for me. I don't have to fuss around with the smoke and with the fire. I can just set that thing up and go. So,
and it's fire too. Like you get smoke off the Traeger where if I'm burning charcoal and putting wood on it or logs, you have to, you'll get smoke, but it needs to be clean smoke, like the thin blue smoke, not necessarily white, puffy, and like puffy means you have a fire that's really bad and things are getting out of control. So, but the Traeger, the pellet grill, you're always going to have clean smoke. So, you get the perfect temperature, but then you get the cleanest smoke possible. So, I'm a big advocate for pellet smokers, and I'll probably smoke this brisket on pellets. Now that I think about it, but yeah, man, I'm happy for you. That makes me.
Well, sir, I've taken this. We've gone an hour. This has been fun, man. We'll have to share more barbecue recipes, and I'll be looking forward to see if you share some pictures of your brisket that you're getting ready to do.
Oh yeah, I got you, man. I got you.